the Judgement Day have lost again. And some people say they've been buried. Would you say they're buried, yes or no? Or is it a too complex question?
I would say those people are whingy.
Or maybe buried doesn't mean what it used to mean.
Maybe.
I'm Oli Davis. I'm Oli Davis. I'm joined by Dan Layton.
Hello.
D-A-N.
Nice. Strong.
And this is the Monday Night Raw review podcast on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. If you haven't already, please press the thumbs up button. Give us a subscribe. Leave a comment down below and send in your...
Oh, they're Ultrachats at the moment. Yeah.
Just Ultrachats. You want to work on something new?
American-made chats. The 6 chats, like for the Wyatt 6, maybe.
Teletors.
Hey,
Teletores.
There was a tease this week that she might be on her way back. Get your natty chats in for Natalia's big return in Calgary.
I don't like that.
Yeah, well, that's your own fault, isn't it?
Getting your Joe Tessitores.
Joe Tessitore! Joe Tessitore!
So, what?
Joe Tessitore.
Joe Tessitore.
Yeah, like talk.
Is it Tessitore or Tessitore?
I think it's Tessitore. It looks like it should be Tessitore, but they pronounced it Tessitore.
That's what I've always been saying, Tessitore, and then he appeared on screen, and Wade Barrett's like, "It's Tessitore."
But it's one of those things: is Barrett just pronouncing it wrong because he's from Stockport, or is your man a member of the Dolmio family? I don't know.
I don't know either. But let's go for Tessatalks. Send in your Tessatalks to WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one of them. Over $5 US. Bit of house clearing first. Housekeeping, rather. What kind of house clearing?
Little bit.
But there's a bit of a superstar shake-up going on this week, just like there has been on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown.
New hosts.
Yeah, so you're off to do some... theatre stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to learn how to do a jazz hand.
Yeah.
Let's go theatre camp. That's what it's called. I'm off to do a master's degree. They don't call me the professor for nothing. So yeah, I'll be off this week. I'm not going. Well, that's your call. Actually, I could be going forever, and you'll never see me again.
Well, no, but if your availability allows,
yeah, I would love to. I mean, we'll be here for Sunday's review of All Out.
Yeah, we sort of said goodbye to each other earlier.
Yeah,
and we're like, and Sunday's All Out, and probably the week.
I will
after.
have weekends off, so like I'll be available for PLEs as long as people want me. Just send it the Dan signal. But for the weekly Raw, what's happening?
Which means it'll be me and Luke, not today because Luke's recording. Well, I won't say what he's recording. It's a surprise. And then AEW Dynamites will be Tempest and Luke, because Tempest would probably get a bit too grumpy if he had to watch more WWE.
Not as much.
And he likes AEW, and I hate AEW.
Do you really?
I hate it, Dan.
Do you?
No, I don't. I really like it. But I thought, I haven't reviewed a show of Raw for, do you know how long, Luke?
You stopped doing them in 2022?
Yeah, so like 2 years. I've covered SmackDown a lot, so I've spoken about SmackDown.
Yeah, it was like green screen era. You stepped down, so it was like 2022. I think you stepped down.
So I haven't watched and reviewed an episode, which is very different to just watching an episode.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's the best show ever.
This was one of the things when we talked about
my bar was this low, and it has just.
When I told you that this was happening, you were like, "Why are you going off to act for? I've got to do the Raw podcast." And I was like, "Oh, it's good now, though. Trust." The show has taken a massive uptick. Like, it's genuinely.
I just don't think you appreciate how much because you've been a part of reviewing it incrementally.
But when I came back, it was when I started doing the Raw show. It was the Triple H era.
Yeah.
So it was very much like. So I was watching as a fan, and you are right. There is a real difference between reviewing a show and watching it for fun. I think that's why when you'll see a show like Bash in Berlin or whatever, and someone who's just watched it for fun goes, "That's a 10 out of 10 show," and if you've watched it to review it, you might be like, "Yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10. Some of these matches felt a bit long," because you're looking at it with a different eye.
Yeah.
So it's hard sometimes to realize just how much of a leap Raw has made from even 2021.
Oh my god, yeah. Loads. It was so bad, and it didn't even make sense segment to segment.
Go around this way.
Well, no, because if I do that, it'll reveal what we're.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
You can just leave us now.
I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna go. Bye, Dan.
Love you.
Love you. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, guys. But the main thing we're going to start talking about today is the Judgment Day storyline.
Who have very much been a sort of part of my whole Raw experience the whole time, because it was Cardiff in 2022 where they turned into the sort of like
the non-edge version.
Yeah, with Dominic joining them. And now we've clearly established babyface side and non-babyface side.
Yeah, so this episode was smartly bookended. I mean, old Raw used to do this as well, but this just felt so much more satisfying because it interwove with a lot of the other things happening on the episode. It starts off with Rhea Ripley coming out. She says to Liv and Dom, hey, the Terror Twins, we beat you at Bash in Berlin. Easy. I pinned the Women's World Champion. So, yeah, give me a title shot. Dominic comes out instead. He had like this busted red eye, which seemed pretty nasty. And Dom said that they lost because they were jet lagged and because they didn't get much sleep for other reasons. And
what were those reasons, Oli?
Sex. I mean, it was insinuated, but that was... I mean, what did you...
I wasn't sure. That's why I wanted to check.
And this let Liv attack Rhea, because Rhea was like, I'll face her any place, anytime. Liv attacks Rhea from behind. They hang up Rhea's ankle in the bottom and middle rope, and they do a bit of an injury angle, and Damian Priest chases them off.
There was a moment where I thought this was an accident. And I was like, oh, and it was, I think, because it happened with Priest. Do you remember?
Yes.
Was it Clash?
Clash in the Castle.
Clash, where he sort of like goes to do the dive over the top, but the rope was a bit loose. He traps his leg in, and I think a lot of people were quite genuinely worried he might have snapped his leg. So for that to happen, and then when I so quickly realized, oh, she was stood on the apron for this purpose. They have done this for a reason, and then it becomes an angle. I was like, that is very good. I liked that little parallel. I like that, and that's why Priest is like, I know what this is like, kind of worried about her kind of thing. Make sure that, like, especially when she goes backstage and the doctors are there and she's doing that sort of like cat at the vets situation where she's screaming at you because she doesn't want to get attention. I thought this was really well worked.
Just as an aside, I've got a cat and went in for a dental operation earlier this year. And we happened to see the private notes from vet to vet, and it said, this is a really lovely cat to operate on. A pleasure throughout. A really
like
nice
a school
cat.
report. That's lovely. That's
so I just
want to,
you just put a bad name on cats there. That they're all horrible in vets.
Don't blame them for it.
This set up the night-long narrative, though, of Priest, like Rhea's getting tended to backstage. She does eventually let the medics look at her. While Priest wants to face Finn Balor, but he can't face Finn without a tag team partner.
Yeah, because Finn won't. Like, actually saying, I'm not going to do that. And I kind of like, again, that's a very heel thing to do, to be like, I don't have to, so I don't want to, kind of thing. Yeah. And
Priest was like, well, I can't tag with you, Rhea. You're a woman. And also...
You've got one leg.
And you're a one-legged woman. And then I've not got any other friends on the roster.
Billy No Mates.
Yeah. And Rhea says, I might know someone. And the whole crowd start chanting yeet. And yeah, it's Jey Uso. Nice little thing there. Jey Uso says to Priest beforehand, hey, I understand where you're coming from. My family turned on me too.
Yeah, that was a really nice touch.
Yeah. And that's like the sort of the thing of the Paul Levesque era. It's those little character beats that flesh out everything else.
Yeah, he's sort of not afraid to tie things in a very neat way that you might not have thought of yourself. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that. In my head, it's like, oh, Jey, because he's doing the bit about Rhea and going to Waffle House and whatever. But actually, how do they clear the air with each other? It's like, we both share something similar and we're going to be men about it. And I quite liked it. I thought it was nice.
This ended in the main event, which was Priest and Jey going up against Finn Balor and JD McDonough, the tag team champions.
They are indeed.
Okay match. Like, Priest is worked. Was it Jey? Jey was worked over, built to the Priest hot tag, and then it just goes crazy. Liv Morgan comes down. She pushes Jey Uso off the top rope and interferes there. But Rhea Ripley comes down. She's on the crutch because she was injured. But then she stands up and reveals she's not injured. But then she was actually injured.
She's not as injured as you thought, but she's injured enough that Liv can get away.
Yeah. So Liv Morgan sprinted out there while Rhea hobbled along. And then that let the faces just win. Razor's Edge, Uso Splash. And after winning at Bash in Berlin, Priest and Jey Uso, who have never worked together before, beat the tag team champions.
They certainly did that. They didn't do that.
Despite Liv Morgan also interfering.
Yeah, that part.
And Liv Morgan ran away, even though she could have easily beaten up Ripley.
You see this as burying. Do you see this as burying?
You know what? In isolation, no. And burying means a couple of different things. There's burying where it's like, oh, they've done something wrong, so they are being buried on air. I don't think it's that. I think that's from another era. But in terms of, oh, this act is being sacrificed for another act to progress, I think that's unfortunately is what's happening. And it's been... If this was just a one-off or even a 2 or 3 off, I'd be like, okay, well, let's see how it plays out. This has been since SummerSlam, and they've just been beaten every time. And I just feel like this is to elevate Priest and Ripley back into world title pictures, but give them something to do in the meantime.
Well, it's interesting because I was trying to look at it. I didn't feel a burial. In fact, when I saw specifically Jey get the pin on JD... I was like, oh, now that's smart. I like that touch because he's the one who's mentioned specifically the tag titles. Him and Sammy had a conversation a little while ago. We've got Sammy and Jey singles stuff to talk about elsewhere on the show. But he sort of hinted that maybe him and Sammy might go after the tag titles. So he now, in the same way that Rhea's got the pin on Liv at Bash, he's got the pin on JD. So he has every right to go up to Adam Pearce and say, look, I just pinned a tag team champion, so can I have a shot at that belt? Also, with it being this sort of like Judgment Day interferes numbers game business, you could make an argument that they always get in their own way of winning. And actually, I feel like JD and Finn probably work well enough together they don't need that level of interference, but they rely on it because they're heels. And when I saw the title of this episode was going to be this conversation, I started thinking about, okay, well, let's go right the way back to Attitude Era when Austin would be in the main event and your top baby faces would still be in the main event. And it's not just like, we're going to have you cut a promo and not wrestle until the pay-per-views. It would often be the Austin versus many members of the corporation. And often the corporation would come up short so that Austin could go off the air with his hand raised and the beer and everyone's screaming and all the rest of it. And I kind of see this as a similar vein to that. If you think about SummerSlam, both Rhea and Priest were cost world titles. I think that is a pretty big statement from the Judgment Day. I think that already gives them the upper hand. Then there was a couple of weeks of the Terror Twins letting their anger out, and they're the ones now they're on this level. Then these guys get a win, then these guys get a win. And I don't see it necessarily as the Terror Twins being more powerful or better than the Judgment Day, and I don't see it as the Judgment Day being worse. I think in the grand scheme of things, for me, it feels quite balanced. That said, I did have Luke's voice in my ear while watching the show, because Luke has felt very much like he's surprised that they're not going on a massive beatdown tear. It's a tricky line to walk, because I feel like if they constantly do the beatdown, then it's hard to root for the babyfaces. But if the babyfaces are constantly winning, then there's no threat, and you just know they're going to win. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's still pretty even keel at the moment. And sometimes people do have to lose to serve a storyline, as you say, to get the other characters over. And I think it is working in that regard. I think Finn Balor is being protected in a big way. Because he hasn't really been any part of any of these beatdowns. He's managed to generally avoid them. And he's not been pinned. Because we are building to a Finn and Priest moment.
Yeah, definitely.
And that'll be where I make my Judgment Day.
Oh,
I didn't mean that.
I totally know what you mean, but I do think after Bash in Berlin, now was the time to give the heat back to the new Judgment Day. I just don't buy them as a threat.
Right.
And I feel like what could have been a really cool new faction versus old kicked out members of faction storyline has just become, we're just treading water until Priest and Rhea can actually do the more important thing. When for me, this was the bet. This was the fun thing.
How did you feel this time last year? Just very quickly, because this was kind of what it was this run of shows where it was one combination of Jey, Sammy, Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes against members of the Judgment Day.
Yeah.
And it was constant and constant and constant. And I don't know if it's the same thing as then. Do you know what I mean? If we had the same conversation then. Did you feel that then? Or?
Well, that's when Cody and Jey won the tag titles? Yeah. It was a bit back and forth, but still, like, they just weren't booked as this, as strongly as I would have hoped them to be. Right. It just feels like this is a holding period between SummerSlam and whatever War Games plans they have. Let's see what everyone thinks in the Chatatores.
Tessitalks.
The Tessitalks.
Which is a Pokemon, it sounds like.
Ben says, is it me or does Paul not book heel... That's Paul Levesque or Triple H. Not book heel groups not named the Bloodline Strong. Damage Control lost to Bianca all the time. Final Testament never win feuds. And Judgment Day is losing despite the numbers advantage. How can I take villains seriously if they always lose?
It is an interesting game because that is, I think, a fair assessment. And yet I think about Gunther being this massively dominant heel the whole time. And I think about Drew being a very dominant, and his losses never came because he didn't get the job done. They came because he was screwed over, which adds fuel to his fire as a heel. So I think he Triple H sees these heel groups as a vehicle to get over other stars more so than things that need getting over in their own right. And maybe that's a wrong way of booking.
I don't necessarily think it is, but I think that is what's happening. And to be honest, when Vince was in charge all those years, it became too heel dominated.
I mean, Triple H is an evidence of that.
Yeah, the heels would always stand tall.
Yeah.
And to where but they'd also never look strong.
Right.
But I think it's much harder to create baby faces that people genuinely root for than it is to do heels. And wrestlers have said the same thing. It's harder to go out there and get cheers as a baby face in this day and age. So it is to WWE's testament that they have made so many super hot baby faces, like Cody and Roman in that upper echelon. But then you've also got your Priest, your Ripley,
I think
others.
A problem comes when those baby faces start spinning their wheels.
You don't want to MCU it, where you're like, I don't believe in any of these villains.
Yeah. And also, I think there's something about an exciting and hot title picture that is constantly evolving. Everyone needs something to do to maintain their heat. But also, you need to go away sometimes to let me miss you. It's a very delicate thing.
Mike says, okay episode of Raw. Glad Kyrie seems to be okay because that bump was incredibly scary. Although her smearing blood all over her face in the post-match confrontation was pretty awesome. Also, shout out to Roxanne and Jada for a great match at NXT No Mercy.
It was a good match. Very good match.
And Aaron Hamrahan, 35-month member, says, hi guys, I really like this Raw, really because of the CM Punk Drew angle. I met you all at Box Park. I was in a wheelchair at the front, had a great time. Oh, great to meet you, Aaron.
Yes, I remember meeting you. That was very good. Yeah. I'm glad you had a good time.
And then should we leave the thank you Dan chats to the end?
Yeah, because those are where I'll squirm.
I'll just do a few more here. Initiative Coffee Co says, I finally persuaded my advisor to let me research professional wrestling. I just need to interview folks or retire from the industry. Any recommendations on the best way to reach out to folks? Cold messages on Instagram? Anybody known to be particularly responsive?
This is very much your wheelhouse.
I don't talk to any wrestlers.
Unless they talk to you.
Well, and then I say talk to Luke.
Yeah.
I don't use Twitter.
Sometimes I think it is. Sometimes cold calling works. Sometimes that sort of Instagram DM, Twitter DM situation works. Depends on the person. I'm less likely to respond to that because I get a lot of crazy stuff in my DMs that I don't like to look at that much. So I have other avenues. Like I have business emails and business. This is a YouTuber, so I would look to see if the wrestlers have representation, or if the wrestlers have a website that has a contact form, and that's probably the way to do it.
This is from the Bash in Berlin show. Jim Shostran says, thank you for grabbing the lunchbox. I always wondered if that set was a green screen photo.
Excuse me, that is a jam in the jar. That is a jam in our briefcase. Thank you.
From last week's AEW stream, I don't see your kayfabe issue with Jack's promo. It made no reference to the Open Challenge, only that Brian was going to discuss his future, which was advertised, and that Jack intended to take the choice from him. No real issues here. Excited for the match. So, if you hadn't seen it, Jack Perry suddenly had this video promo for Bryan Danielson's unannounced Open Challenge, which, you could he's doing it live, but then it was a ruse and he attacked Bryan from behind.
Right. Yeah.
I still think it was a bit weird. And finally, before we get in with the rest of the review, Patrick Eddy says, hey guys, this doesn't have anything to do with Dynamite. Oh, so it's still AEW. But I wanted to know how you feel about Kurt Angle saying TNA was at its best when they signed Hogan, Nash and Booker T. And when the main event Mafia formed. He said it in Chris Van Vliet's interview, Jam That Jam. I do love the main event Mafia.
They're an iconic stable for a reason, I will say. Not that I was a massive TNA mark, unlike some Raw hosts. But yeah.
I disagree. But then when you actually go back and look at TNA, there is no actual golden era. Me and Luke are constantly trying to find, when was the bit we liked? And we'll go back and watch a show. I'm like, God, this is 80% crap.
Yeah, a lot of wrestling in the noughties was rubbish. You had to look for the real good indie stuff on the wrestling channel.
Right, so let's get back into our review of Monday Night Raw. Please keep sending in your Talkatores.
Let's just call them Ultrachats.
Talkatores. And we'll read out every single one of them. Over $5 US. Yeah, WrestleTalk.com/support. And also go to patreon.com/WrestleTalk to help support us make all these videos. Right, so the show had a cold open in Denver, Colorado, with Wade Barrett introducing Joe Tessitore as Raw's new lead play-by-play guy.
Certainly did. They did this on No Mercy as well. Vic Joseph was sort of hyping the fact that it was the first PLA of any form in Denver in like 20 years. I think it was Vengeance in 2003 that they mentioned on the show later. I like that. I like that kind of, here we are. So if someone's going to say welcome to Monday Night Raw, I'd rather it was the voice.
Yeah, the show itself.
Exactly, yeah.
As opposed to the characters on it.
Yeah, so yeah, I liked it. And then it was striking just how deep Joe Tessitore's voice is. It is sultry tones, isn't it?
I said in my review it was so deep you could bury the Judgment Day in it.
Hello.
Uh-oh. I really liked him. Should we just do a little review of Joe here? In terms of a first night in, and I think Mauro Ranello's probably like the best I've ever seen take to the WWE style in recent times. But my God, there's been a lot of attempts at replacing Michael Cole over the years. And some of them have not been good at all. No. This, to me, is definitely way closer to the Ranello end than what I'll call the Adnan Virk end.
Yes, I fully agree with that, or the Mike Adamle end. I feel like I actually don't know Joe Tessitore's background. I don't know if he's NFL. I know he has sports broadcasted for ESPN for a while.
ESPN stuff and boxing stuff as well.
Okay,
a show called Top Rank Boxing, which I've not watched.
That's got your combat element in there. I think some combat sports background is really helpful. Kevin Patrick is a very, very good soccer commentator. Like, he commentates on MLS.
And he's keen.
And he's got a great voice for soccer. When I remember once watching a clip of him commentating on some MLS goals, and I was like, Jesus, where's this energy on Raw? Like, he's genuinely very good at it, but for some reason that doesn't translate to the combat. So I think Mauro Ranello obviously has combat sports commentary experience as well. I think there's something that helps, obviously. Over the course of the show, it's really interesting because I'm at the very beginning of my journey in this field. I've done a couple of shows for PW up in Stratford and for NGW as well. And I'm sort of like shadowing Dave Bradshaw and doing colour for him and learning from him as we go and listening to his patterns of speech. And afterwards we'll have a little chat and he'll give me tips and tricks. And it's things that I haven't thought about before, but that are very, very prescient. And one of them came into play tonight. So if you're commentating on a moment in a match and there is a big move like an apron bomb or a dive, and I'm in the middle of a point as a color commentator, I either need to take the L on my sentence and cut it off and instead talk about what's happening, or use it in my voice to mention that something just happened and you just saw it there. You kind of see. So there was a moment in the women's match between Zelina Vega and Shayna Baszler where Zelina does a Meteora off the rope, and Joe just talked over it and didn't raise his voice, and it made it seem inexceptional. I don't think I would have thought of that had Dave not pointed that out to me, and I went, oh yeah, I should feel something there, and I didn't. Interesting. So that's something that I noticed.
You saying he should do the wrestling masterclass with Dave Bradshaw? I
absolutely think he should do the wrestling masterclass with Dave Bradshaw. But also, I just think when you look at the basics, like, he knows the names of moves. I know that sounds like a low bar.
Oh, but that is a bar that has been set by other Raw commentators.
Exactly. He knows the names of moves, he knows the people, and he has done enough research that he knows when storyline beats happened and who is related to who. He mentioned Dominic Mysterio having a feud with Dragon Lee over the North American Championship, so he knows the product. That stuff is so crucial. The rest of it, learning when to heat and to cool down and the rhythm of it, that'll come. This was a great start, I think, for him. And I love Wade as well.
Wade's really, really good. There were just a few moments. I'll probably come onto them as we go. But I just thought he had a really nice, character, storytelling beats.
Yes.
Which is where I thought he would have faced more friction coming from a legit sports broadcasting background. I think it's when it might have been when Drew attacks Punk.
Yes, he did a very good job in that segment.
Yeah, and it comes back from the break, and Wade was trying to convince Drew to stop. You could get suspended or fined, and it was Joe who semi-interviewed Wade about his feelings on that. I thought, that's a really good instinct to do that. Yeah, maybe it wasn't an instinct. Maybe someone in his ear told him to, but I thought he did it well.
To carry that off is kind of hard, especially in sports, because in football, UK football, there is a commentator who I actually really like who paints a picture, and if you feel like he's written himself a monologue for as the teams are walking out, and it's a really good monologue, but sometimes it can come across, all right, Peter, that's a bit hokey. So weirdly, that works better in wrestling than it does elsewhere. So his ability to be able to play with those stuff, it's week one.
Yeah,
but this is a really good debut, I think.
Yeah, if he's still at this level in 3 months, I'll be like, oh, yeah, that's a shame.
Exactly.
But in terms of week one, and I expect him to grow.
Yeah,
because everything about WWE at the moment seems to get better every week, as opposed to what happened before. You'll debut someone, you're like, well, that's 3 weeks, and they'll start going plummet.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Let's see how he does. The first match was American made in a 6-person intergender tag against Alpha Academy. So that's the Creeds and Ivy Nile against Otis, Maxine, and Akira Tozawa. Really fun match, actually. Otis uses Tozawa as a weapon on an airplane spin. The Creeds were just excellent throughout. Maxine did I'll call it a dive, but it was more of a fooling with style off the top rope outside. And yeah, Otis hot tag. The match sort of breaks down. Tozawa gets taken out outside, and it comes down to Maxine and Ivy Nile. But Maxine decides to slap, or I think kick, Chad off the apron.
She does, yeah.
And that lets Ivy Nile get in the awesome-looking Dragon Sleeper.
My God.
It looks like she's Gunther doing a pose.
It does.
While she's choking out Maxine.
I thought this match was good as it would be with these people. I'm sort of ready for them to go off and do separate things. I actually want American Made to finish off this Howdy storyline and go somewhere else, but certainly want them to move on with the Academy, and the Academy should go off and move as well. That said, they have good chemistry together, so it's always going to be entertaining. And Maxine in particular with Ivy, we've seen less of Ivy than I think we should, because I think she's really quite good. And that sleeper in particular is using Maxine's height and lankiness and Ivy's stature to her benefit, because she's it looked like Maxine was folded over backwards, and it looked like it really hurt, which is what wrestling should be. So that was really good.
Yeah, it's kind of like Taz.
Yeah.
Taz, even though he was a short guy, always seemed threatening. And Ivy Nile's using Pitbull energy. Good description.
Mr. 305.
Chad then got on the mic, speaking of the Wyatt Six stuff, and said that last week, that one-on-one match with Uncle Howdy, he cheated. There was too much interference, which could heal explanation, because he had his own help with American Made. And then he said he wants an 8-man hardcore tag next week, and they will rid the Wyatts from America. And the crowd booed the US. Which is I've been watching loads of MJF segments when he's been trying to get at sort of the American heel gimmick thing, and the crowd just want to chant USA.
But they were chanting USA in the lead into Berlin, because Gunther, every time he's doing something about America, they'll chant USA, and I was like, wow, we never going to get past chanting USA. Apparently this is what it takes.
But then here, Chad, it's sort of what Kurt Angle used to do. It's the faux American hero. So that was well done. And then Uncle Howdy came out on the ramp and accepted, doing a little promo himself.
Interesting to see Howdy in the arena. That was different than normally we have the Howdy stuff backstage or in the match, but him cutting a promo as Howdy felt different. Yeah. So I was I quite liked it.
And an 8-person hardcore match next week. Was it like a street fight?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope it's you remember Viking Rules?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Chad Gable can pull this stuff off very well.
Zelina Vega then took on Shayna Baszler after Pure Fusion Collective. I can't.
The best a man can get.
Took her out last month. And Stark distracted Vega. Vega went to take him out, and she got back in the ring, and Shayna kicked her in the gut, not even in the face. Pin, win.
Job them. Yikes.
And then Lyra Valkyria came down to make the save, and then Pure.
Go on, you can do it. Pure. Form the words.
Pure Fusion Collective.
Thank you.
Beat them down afterwards, and then Sonya Deville cut a promo about how no man can take them home and no woman can beat them up, I think, and that's it.
Yeah. And then there was a segment backstage with Lyra and Zelina where they were like, God, they keep battering us, and like, we need to step up to them. We're going to be in Calgary. I know someone who can help.
Oh yeah, because the way to make me excited about this undercard women's feud is add in a Natalia.
I'm not having Natalia slander on my last Raw podcast. That is not a thing that's happening.
Strap in.
No, so this match, first of all, there was a nice moment at the beginning. Zelina had a sign that she noticed in the crowd that was in tribute to her dad. And I thought that was quite... Because you remember when she was going to have that match on 9/11 in Madison Square Garden, and then they cut her from TV? That was a real not good moment. So it was sort of like... You could tell that Zelina was quite moved to see that sign, especially because we're close to the anniversary. And I think, again, it's one of these weird things where this match was not bad. This match was not good. This match was just...
It was.
Yeah, and then you beat down angle, and then there's the we run the division, and then there's the conversation about they've just been battering us all, except I've seen them lose. Like, it's a lack of foresight and a lack of dedication and commitment. It's like, hey, you've got 10 minutes, go out and tell them you run the division. I'm not going to give it any more thought than that in the creative process. And that's frustrating, because there is an abundance of talent in this division, in the women's division in general. If you don't allow for consistency, character work, and I'll get into some of that in the women's tag as well later on, it's no wonder that it falls flat all the time.
Also, saying you run the division when you so clearly don't.
Nobody runs the division. If everyone runs the division...
Rhea Ripley runs the division.
She's too busy with Dominic.
Yeah.
Liv didn't have the belt on her. Sorry, Liv didn't have the belt on her all week. Like this episode of Raw, she came out of Bash wearing the belt, and I went, oh yeah. So remove the belt from Rhea and Liv, and I think we're fine.
Priest said he can't face Finn. This is when we get one of the backstage bits. Then we get the Natalia segment. Then CM Punk comes down.
Yeah, big time.
Did you see the sign opposite the hard cam?
No.
Math greater than pipe bomb.
Was there? Oh, first of all, no. But cool.
Yeah, cool. I hope it confused Punk.
Well, because he famously is not online.
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
So Punk says that the strap match was one of the toughest matches he's ever had. That's the Bash in Berlin match from Saturday. But now the Drew feud is definitely done. And when he said that, like, I thought, maybe it is done then. Pretty decisive finish. And he's getting to business. He's not here to make friends. I thought this was a good line. He's got a chip on his shoulder that can only be replaced by the WWE title.
I wrote that down too.
I don't think it will make him happy. I don't think it will. I think resolving whatever issues he's had in the past will make him happy. But then
running NXT will make him happy.
He's on the commentary desk celebrating. It was shot really well, so you could only see Punk. And then he disappears because Drew McIntyre in a sexy hoodie had swiped his legs. And then he just does this awesome beatdown angle on him.
Yeah, it's a pretty vicious beatdown as well. 3 claymores that felt like I felt them.
And also, finally, the bracelet was removed from Punk's wrist and it was snapped. I thought that was a really good angle.
It was.
But the crowd just went, oh, but I thought that deserved a bigger reaction from the crowd.
I think it got a good reaction. I do think it deserved a bigger one because I thought it was very well worked.
And it's been such a focal point, but maybe it shows that people are a bit over the bracelet.
So here's my thing.
If everyone cheered, that would have been worse.
Bad. Here's my thing. I made a pitch on the Bash review that I think they should have used, because obviously I came up with it. But basically, and I sort of half got it, which is Punk comes out and he's like, I've done that. I thought it was a great promo. I thought his energy was right. And he's like, done that, sick, everything's great. Gunther, I'm coming for you. I want the belt. And I would have liked for him to challenge Gunther and Gunther be like, yeah, all right, next week. And they have a match next week. And that match is interrupted by Drew McIntyre. And that's where we get this moment. And I think because I look at the calendar and it's like 4 more episodes of Raw before Bad Blood, where we're likely to get the Hell in a Cell match that has been long rumored, or maybe just a blood match. I don't know, like some feud, some like street fight, no holds barred, if they want to save the Hell in a Cell for a different feud. I feel like if you are tired of this feud, no angle will be enough for you. But if you are wavering, this angle I think was strong enough to get you back in. Certainly works for me. I'm a big fan of Drew. I'm a big fan of Punk. I think their work together has been fantastic. Loved the strap match. I also liked the SummerSlam match. I know it wasn't for everybody, but I think going forward they have 4 weeks of television to fill, and this beatdown was enough that I think you can write Punk off for a couple of weeks. Yeah. And then Drew, I just would have liked the sort of like symbolism of Drew screwing Punk in the way Punk screwed Drew for the belt. But I liked the beatdown very much.
I definitely think he'll be written off because they did a stretcher job. Adam Pearce is out there. They're wheeling him into an ambulance after the break. And then Drew's back again and he sort of bloodies Punk's mouth.
Well, the last time we saw someone get put in an ambulance on Monday Night Raw, they ended up in AEW. So.
The only thing I would have changed is to milk the bracelet bit a bit longer, because they snapped it and then he shoved it down Punk's
horrible
throat, which is great.
Yeah,
I thought you could have gone a bit more psychotic there.
Yeah,
like Drew snaps it and then just sits down cross-legged Punk style and then just starts taking each bead off and throwing it at him.
Yeah, like real
really so, and then like getting more and more, because I just felt it was such a good idea and such an emotionally charged MacGuffin. Yeah, I just feel like it wasn't a 10 out of 10. It was like an 8 out of 10.
I feel that.
I don't know if my version would have been better, but
no, yeah. It's also that sometimes things, I actually really liked how it just like shoving it down his throat was a very like horrible. Like those beads, they're all over my flat because my other half was making friendship bracelets throughout Taylor Swift. They're tiny and they get in the way. It's like not it would feel like I could feel it, if that makes sense. And I thought it was very visceral in that way, so I liked it. And then that beat down after the fact, I thought it was just a really comprehensive, vicious, on par with that moment that I think one of the best moments WWE had all year, with the reveal of Drew standing over the fallen Punk in Chicago and then carrying him through the arena. God, Drew McIntyre's good.
Look, I'm a Punk fan, and I've not been on the show that reviews Punk since he came back to WWE. I don't love this version of Punk. I think he's a bit too. I never get old of this. That was never the Punk that I was into.
Right. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Even babyface Punk back in the day was dickhead Punk. And I guess he has still been a dickhead with the Drew stuff, but the promo stuff feels insincere. Yeah. Which jars with
I understand
the babyface.
A few people have felt that. I think once we're through this feud and he's on to other people, and maybe not even other people, because you might be on. I think the one with Seth is going to be really.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be fascinating.
Wade Barrett was really good in this. We mentioned earlier he was sort of trying to calm Drew down. Then we got Dominic Mysterio versus Dragon Lee versus Ilya Dragunov. This was a three-way qualifier for the fatal 4-way for the number 1 contendership of the IC title.
Correct.
Really good match, actually. Dominic was helped by Carlito, but then Priest chased both Carlito and Dom off. And then it comes down to just the guys with Dragon in their name. And they had a bit of a back and forth. Torpedo Moscow to win from Ilya. And then they raised his arm in respect afterwards. Yeah.
I, on SmackDown, have really liked the sort of like competitive edge that the US title division has had, especially Carmelo and Andrade, who are not explicitly fighting for opportunity at that belt, but it very much felt like when Andrade won two of the three, it was like, right, I'm going after this, and Carmelo interrupted that. And that has made the entire division feel electric. I think this is doing the same thing. And I liked that a lot. I feel it's fairly obvious that Jey's going to win this failed 4-way, but I would have kind of liked Dominic somehow go through, like to come back.
I know.
He's lost
in this
Priest.
match.
Yeah.
I wrote down the exact same thing. Like it's just Ilya and Dragon Lee for a bit.
Yeah.
And then Moscow Torpedo, whatever. Dominic runs in, but tries
Somehow
to get
given Priest a slip somewhere.
Yeah.
And then because then you got the dynamic with him and Jey and Rhea in that fatal 4-way. That would have been what I would have done. But I'm not going to complain about Dragunov being in a fatal 4-way.
We got a recap of Bronson Reed splashing Braun through a car. Love that sentence.
It was so simple.
Kathy Kelly asks Adam Pearce, well, what are you going to do in the other triple threat qualifying match? Because Bronson Reed's out with COVID. He got taken out by COVID backstage. And this is when Strowman comes in.
A farcical amount of tape on his ribs.
Yeah. And he like lifts up his t-shirt, which was already covering only half his nipple anyway. just in case, guys, you haven't seen this. And he was like, the doctors said if I want to, I could compete. Like, why even have doctors?
Mama, this was garbage. This whole justification was a mess.
I didn't mind it, though. I enjoyed the match as well. Unholy Union then took on Damage Control. This was a number one contenders match for the women's tag team titles. Which, that's next week, the match, I think.
No.
This was fine. Bianca and Jade were outside watching on, and the big spot was Isla Dawn pulled Belair in the way of this Kairi Sane, I guess, elbow outside. A flying face to the commentary table is what it ended up being. Kairi just busts her face open. It looks really bad. She had stitches, apparently she's fine.
She's posted in hindsight, and she used it in the sort of stare down afterwards.
But then that distraction let the Unholy Union win.
You can sort of copy and paste how I felt about the previous women's match onto this one. It is the number one contenders roundabout. They just lost the belts and now they're the number one contenders again, and that will be the third match that these women, 4 women specifically, have had for these belts in 4 or 5 weeks. It's not effective.
I think it's filler because right after the match, Belair and Cargill were getting in the face of Damage Control.
I think they were supposed to win.
Oh, do you think it was an audible?
I think so, because Kairi hit hard, and there was a moment where just as the three is Kairi sliding into the ring and looks a bit confused, and the ref immediately starts talking to her. And I don't know if it was supposed to be their turn, and that's why you still have the stare down. Either way, I think the roundabout is a mess, and I think that the lack of... Again, it's competition in the division. It doesn't have to be... I'm not asking for loads. I'm just asking for them to have an interesting... I want to care about these tag teams. Maybe the Unholy Union go off and lean back into their witchiness. Not necessarily supernatural witchiness, but white woman mysticism. They're communing with the Highland and the crystals and all the rest of it. Because it would give me something to know about them.
What's Jade Cargill's character?
She is insanely buff.
Yeah.
And quite cool.
Yeah, but she's
insanely buff. Quite cool.
I think Jade and Bianca have just become one-dimensional versions of what they were before. And Bianca's always had a bit of that in her as a babyface on the main roster, but Jade, compared to the heel shtick, and eventually turned her face as well. This is just she seems like a robot out there, character-wise.
I think there was something interesting in the lead up to the match against Unholy Union where they were playing with the idea of they lost their belts and then they couldn't get it together, and Bianca was getting frustrated. And we also saw several months ago now when Bayley starts turning face, Bianca being like, you're a dick. I remember you being very horrible to me and I don't really like it. And Naomi having to be the one to sort of be like, trust. I know I've not been here a while, and then Bianca was like, yeah, you don't know what it was like. She was running around with Damage Control. There have been some really interesting things. I want us to get back there. And I hope that this second run with the tag belts is what is eventually going to lead us to Vision,
something interesting.
And then WrestleMania, maybe a heel Bianca versus Jade.
I'd prefer that, yeah.
Yeah.
After that, we got Gunther coming out, and he was like, well, now there's no CM Punk to make the challenge here. Who's going to be Gunther's challenger? Gunther spoke about how Bash in Berlin was the highest grossing arena gate. So that beats Backlash in Paris, I believe, that had the previous record.
And Glasgow.
Called us all degenerates. And then he said he beat the best version of Randy Orton. And then Sami Zayn's music hit. And as soon as it did, I was like, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out, and Sami puts over the IC belt and some famous champions from the past, Macho Man, Stone Cold, Bret Hart. And the idea that the Intercontinental title was the workhorse belt where you prove yourself, and then that's the stepping stone to the world title picture, just like Gunther did. So he's coming for Gunther's world title. Gunther applied and got watted a lot, which was annoying, but said, "You're not one of the greats, Sami, so you're not going to get a shot at this title." Gunther walks away, and that's when Sami says, "You don't usually back down from fights. Maybe it's because I'm the only person to have beaten you."
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I've been waiting for this interaction for a little while. I very much wanted something when Sami lost the Intercontinental belt and was down on and he had his rematch and didn't get it, and he was sort of feeling down on himself. I kind of wanted a little backstage interaction where Gunther, who has won another belt, is walking around being like, such it. And Sami is like, I beat you though. I lost the belt, but I beat you. And so I was glad to get that here, because it is, like you, the music hits and you go, yep, I've been waiting for this. I'm glad. And I think the idea, I didn't think that one was going to go the way it was going to, but I'm more certain that this one won't go the way of Sami Zayn winning the belt. But I kind of like that it creates a visual where I could believe it.
Well, Sami is fantastic at making you believe.
Exactly.
Like that Roman Reigns Elimination Chamber match from last year.
And then even when you think about Jey, we got a segment in a little bit with Braun and Jey. I've been thinking about how Jey and Sami come together and how maybe Roman starts recruiting them for War Games, if that is the way they're going to go down, if we have this kind of like old bloodline versus new bloodline. And the idea of Sami and Jey with singles titles on their shoulders. Sami's won the world title and Jey's got himself an Intercontinental, his first singles title ever. And Roman being like, will you help me against Solo? And then be like, do you see how well we've done since we broke free from
that's cool.
Do I think that's what's going to happen? No. But it's an interesting visual, and the fact that it is present in thinking about this match is fun.
Jackie Redmond, speaking of, is backstage with Jey Uso and interviewing him, and he's doing the yeets. And then Braun Strowman.
You're going to need to get used to this on Raw. We have Bron Breakker, Braun Strowman, and Bronson Reed.
Yes.
It's a very difficult trinity.
Bron Breakker appears doing like the yeets at the same time, which is really good. And he just goes serious and he says, I'm going to give you one chance to get out of this IC tournament, so you can focus on getting Dom's sloppy seconds instead. And if this was old 3 year ago WWE, Bron Breakker would walk off and Jey would just go,
Yeah.
But no, Jey Uso got to look awesome and go, okay, now you've got my attention. I'm going to win the tournament. I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to take your belt. Both guys look strong.
Yes. Again, a competition. Like it's the bar was so low, but it's nice to have that kind of thing. It does make the four-way a foregone conclusion.
Yes, it does feel very clear.
But also, that's kind of been the way for 3 weeks now. So,
I've written here, I didn't get to use it in my review. We went from yeet to meat, because we had Braun Strowman taking on Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus in the other IC title qualifier, the final one. Braun sold his midsection. He was taken out through the barricade timekeeper area early, and then it went to break and it came back. Ludwig Kaiser's like, I'm just going to make sure Braun's still dead. Runs outside. The big chair is thrown at him. Brilliant.
Yeah, anytime a big chair comes flying out of nowhere, it's a 5-star rule.
So then Pete Dunne also got involved. He pulled Sheamus out from a pin and hit him with the shillelagh, and then Strowman hit a power slam on Kaiser to advance.
That is surprising. I mean, I know that it was probably going to be Bronson Reed, but surprising that they didn't want to plop a Kaiser in there or something.
Well, I think it works because now Bronson can have more beef with Strowman.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you stole my place.
Depending on how quick COVID runs through your system these days, maybe he can take him out during that match.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, with a cough. And then we get this just really weird bit backstage where Pete Dunne is leaving that bit, and Jackie Redmond asks him, what was that all about, blah, blah, blah. And Dunne says it was a message to Sheamus. And then Jackie Redmond says, do you want me to tell him it was from Butch?
She was feeling her oats. I don't know what she was thinking, but goodness me, Jackie.
But she didn't sell it like, I'm a moral backstage interviewer. How dare you do that? Like, she was confused that Pete Dunne was annoyed.
Yeah.
About being annoyed about Butch.
It was a weird little segment, but I also kind of liked it. But also I can't, with all due respect to our brothers in the Midlands, I can't take a Birmingham accent seriously.
Well, that was the full episode, because then the main event we've already covered was the Judgment Day getting buried. Overall, I thought it was a really, really good show. Just an absolute delight compared to previous year's Raws.
Yeah, I
gave it 70%.
I can't imagine what it used to be like. I'm glad, because it is interesting watching it in this context and not in them.
I'll tell you, it wasn't a functioning show. No bit of it worked as even a bad television show.
Yeah.
It wasn't even trashy. It wasn't so bad I hate to love to watch it. It was torture.
Yeah.
And it's only now, years after, I'm really realizing what we lived through.
And it's so interesting as well, because some of when these shows are bad to boring, they are light years ahead of what they used to be.
Yes.
But because they're bad to boring, we'll say that, and people will get a little bit understandably cross. It's a much more pleasant experience to just sit and watch them. So than it ever used to be. It used to be a slog.
That's another point. It's like I still think 3 hours is way too long.
Yes.
But I watched this quite relatively easily compared to the old ones.
Yeah. SmackDown's a breeze.
Yeah, I bet, yeah. So the poll is going now, so you can have a vote on what you would rate the episode. And we haven't got our Patreon shout-outs yet, because it's the start of the month. That's still processing. But please do go over to WrestleTalk.com please do go over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk and support us over there. We can't make all of these shows without your support. And we also have exclusive content there for you, like an exclusive tables, lists and chairs, an exclusive survival series, and mine and Luke's WrestleTalk Extra series, where we're currently talking about TNA. 2006 TNA, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe. Mwah.
So if you want to see Luke Owen live his best life...
every day.
There you go.
Right, so your remaining Talkatores.
No. Natty Chats. She's back. She's on her way.
WrestleTalk.com/support. Matt Hennessy says, I don't think Judgment Day is buried. Liv the world champion and Balor and JD are tag champs. That's why it's more frustrating for me. It's more a case of level of importance. The OG Judgment Day created 4 new stars for the company in Balor, Priest, Dom and Rhea. Of those 4, only Finn, Rhea, and Damien are believable main eventers. I want to put Finn in that bracket.
I think I see Finn as a main eventer, but only because I lived NXT.
Dom is a fun mid-card heel you pay to see get beat up. Looking at this new Judgment Day outside of Finn Balor, and to a lesser extent Liv Morgan, Dom, JD and Carlito roles are to get beat up and take pins. 3 solid mid-card heels who can be beaten. If you watch the Judgment Day matches, whenever they lose, they go out of their way to not let Finn get pinned. He is actively being protected. When Triple H first took creative, one of the reports that came out is he wanted to elevate Finn Balor to be a top heel, and I think he's been successful. Finn is the number 3 heel on Raw behind Gunther and Drew. I'd say Bron Breakker is above him, and Chad.
I think he's above Chad, but yeah.
Last year, Balor feuded with Edge and Seth. Even though he lost those feuds, he was elevated, and within the last 12 months, Finn has had 3 tag title runs.
This next bit is also Matt.
To me, the end goal of this feud is to elevate Priest and Rhea as top faces, which is done, and also make Finn and Liv top heels, which is done. JD, Dom and Carlito are just there to take bumps and eat pins. You look at Raw's main event scene, it's stacked and building around Gunther, Drew, Balor, Priest, Zayn, Punk and Rollins. I think is the way to go. Eventually, you can elevate others like Reed, Dragunov and Breakker into the mix.
Yeah, I think it's a very good summation of things. I think for me... Finn is on the way to going back to his top status, and I think this feud with Drew, with Priest, that has been a long time coming, is maybe what will put him over the edge. I don't think he's there yet.
Stephen Costa, Hi, Starbucks. Hello, lads. Starbucks here. I enjoyed Raw last night. Thought we were going to get Joe Hendry. Oh, imagine that.
I think you want to save it for a Royal Rumble pot.
But Braun instead. Dan, gonna miss you, but I said before, whatever you do will be amazing. And remember, you're always welcome here. Mum will miss you too.
I miss you guys. Well, I hopefully we'll see you at some point.
Rafael Garcia. So let me see if I get this. Jade saw Isla drag Bianca in the way of Kyrie, so Jade hit Kyrie in plain view of the ref, but the ref didn't DQ them. Also, and hear me out on this, Alpha Academy transfers to Chase U. I like that. Fat bags of cash, happy trails, Dan.
I love the going to Chase U situation. That's kind of fun.
I think when are they going to get called up? I feel like they're never talked about as a call-up prospect. They're a good act.
They are a good act. That is me and Roxanne Perez as well. I feel like a lot of NXT is ready for the main roster, but then they come up there and it's like, well, are you just going to mill about on main event where actually you are being focused? Also, this I've seen this clip of the ref. It's fully looking. That feels more like a ref being in the wrong place than anything to do with the others. That does happen a lot. Yeah, it's sloppy.
Roach Senpai says, something I need your opinion about. Why isn't any other woman challenging Liv? Surely there are other deserving women on Raw who could use a shot. Why does the WWE always stick with the same 4 people while everyone else is just there?
This is one of the things that's frustrating is that, like, I think Liv and Rhea is a feud that is really good that doesn't need a title, because the title in this moment is Dominic Mysterio. I understand that Liv taking the belt and Rhea never lost the belt, and that being the moment that, you know, Dominic turns on Rhea it's very important to that story. I understand that completely, but that's what's frustrating when you've got a division who are otherwise milling about and all they've got to do is say they run the division. Putting the belt even in there allows for that competitiveness, maybe. Yeah.
Also, there's the old school argument, though, of your biggest stars in that division are Liv and Rhea.
Yeah.
So the belt should be on them because that gets the most eyeballs.
But I would argue,
while
that's true, and it is that you do want the belt on the top star, or at least the top heel for the top star to chase, you have an opportunity here to elevate more people, and I think that's where the division suffers.
Collection of Fusion. Why no one pop during the Torpedo Moscow? Everyone was dead silent. I was the only one popping hard. This sucks. No one seems to know Dragunov. By the way, Tatum Paxley definitely ready for WWE roster now. This is a good time, and who knows? Judgment Day.
I think it's because he's not been on telly for a while, and the Torpedo Moscow is his signature move rather than his finishing move, and I think it's getting the reps in and reminding us that that's what his move is.
And then we've got get the tissues out. Thank you, Dan chats.
I don't take compliments well, so I'm going to squirm for a while.
Adamaniac. As a more recent subscriber, I've never known WrestleTalk without Dan. Your insight and depth of knowledge has genuinely enhanced my own wrestling fandom. You'll be so missed. Thank you for your service, and good luck in your future endeavours.
I was future endeavoured.
Do you want me to just go through all of them and then you can...
Yeah, go on then.
Or you can address each one.
No, we'll go through them all.
Cuter than Ito says, Dear Dan, I will miss your weekly woke rants and the positivity you bring to the week. Your ability to be yourself is an inspiration to everyone. I don't even watch Raw, but I watch the reviews for you. Thank you for everything, Dan. You are an icon.
I used that word on Daniel Craig once. I don't think I'm quite deserving of it.
Theatre Callum says, thanks for hosting the podcast. Dan, good luck with your theatre masters. I did my theatre directing masters and loved it. I'm sure you will love your musical masters. Cannot wait to see you again. Loved your contributions across the WrestleTalk universe. And Real Double J says, if Dan's now on the Roman Reigns schedule, does he get that Roman Reigns money? Prof's got to pay them inflated tuition fees. Enjoyed the new commentary, but Joe sometimes sounds as low energy as Al Gore celebrating book sales. Simpsons reference, sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that. I assume it's... I mean, I get the Al Gore, so I can sort of work it out. Thank you very much for all being very nice to me. I will say... About 2 years ago, I was having a rough old time of it, with a lack of direction and no sort of structure in my life and not really know what I was going to do. And I was visiting my girlfriend's family in Aberystwyth, so we were sat on one of these days on the cliff looking out at the sea in a very healthy way, not in a... That's when I got a call from Luke, who asked if I wanted to come and do the Raw pod full time. And for me, in that moment, it was like a little candle at the end of a tunnel, a little flicker of light. And I was like, okay, that would be amazing. And then being part of the team and doing everything that we've done, and you've been very generous with me as well, and I appreciate you very much for that. I love it. I love talking about this. It's made my relationship with wrestling is longer than any relationship I've had in my life outside of my family, and to appreciate it on a whole new level, to take steps into the industry in a very small way on the commentary desk, going to more independent shows. It's meant the world. It's been a lifesaver, so I'm very grateful. So thank you all very much.
We're very grateful to have you.
And I'll poke my head in when I've got a week off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll hijack and talk about Natalia.
You're on Sundays All Out. Review.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Ela Merkel says, hiya, listener since 2017.
Goodness.
But first time Ultra Chatter. They're not called that. You should know that by now. They're Chattatores. This Saturday, I was able to go to a collision with my family, their first wrestling event. I brought my WT WrestleTalk sign, but I don't think I got it on screen. Next time, Jam That Jam from Sioux Falls.
Love that.
Thank you very much, Ela. Breezy Streamy, I think it would be awesome if somewhere down the line, Gable challenges Breakker for the title in a losing effort, while American Made struggles, leading to the Creeds aligning with Breakker and Chad reuniting with Otis and Tozawa to finally win the belt.
I do kind of want to see Chad win that belt, babyface. But
Kevin says, no one shows Rikishi what happened after the show between Jey and Rhea. Jey's marriage depends on it for some reason. Ollie, I think you and I have to accept that Punk isn't the rebel he used to be. Also, Sammy versus Gunther is a great choice. As a wrestling traditionalist, that is capitalized there, good to see Dan going out with a bang. Good luck with your next adventure. It was nice helping you win Survival Series that one time. Oh, was Kevin in the box park?
Quite possibly.
Was that actually Kevin? Oh.
SP3 helped me get it over the line, but you may have been very much along the way.
Welcome back, Ollie. We don't have people hitting each other with bricks, but it's still good. God damn, one of the best goddamn angles I've ever seen.
Which one?
Maurice just clocked someone with a brick. And I was like, this should be a bigger deal. You can't just do it. It was just one little beat on that week's.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even talked about for the rest of the show.
Put more attention on Maurice is what I'm taking away from that.
Moose says 2 things. What are your reaction to greatest diss track of all time from Trick Williams?
I currently don't have a reaction to it.
No. Also, thank you, Dan, so much for your copium-induced rantings. They have always been enjoyable during any of the reviews. You were my McAfee.
Actually, I've come round. When he started back in January, I was like, no, I'm not vibing, but that's come round.
You will be missed. James Zimmerman, brand new Memberg. Howdy, folks. Dan, I just want to say thanks for being a good reviewer, and your fashion is on point.
That I agree with.
And Harriet, Manga Girl, 21-month Memberg, says, hope this gets in, but just want to wish Dan the best of luck. You are incredible and inspirational. We'll miss you so much. You're going to do amazing.
Thank you. I promise I'll be back.
So what is the grand musical that you're working on?
Well, my dream role is going to be, I want to play Judas in the Scorsese adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar. That was my dream role. Like, if I could,
was that ever reported?
No, but don't you think it would be amazing? I think it would be incredible. I'm just going to put it out there into the universe and manifest it. Yeah. And definitely not Fozzy. I'm going to go over and end the poll because they put it in big.
Yes. They've also put hashtag thank you Dan.
Stop it.
In here. Chant in the comments. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Hate it. Oh, that's low. Okay. Thumbs up 64%, mid 33%. That's one of the lowest Raws we've had in a long time.
I said 70%. So
I think anything lower than 7 in the number, and I'm like, wow, burying Raw, are we? Okay, yeah. I see.
Oh, I quite liked it. But I've got rose tinted glasses.
You're just
right
happy
now. So oh my god, it's so much better reviewing it from when I remember. But thank you so much for everyone who's joined us today and for your chats. Please go over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk and support us over there, and go and watch the WrestleTalk news over on the WrestleTalk main channel. But for now, I've been Ollie Davis. This has been Dan Layton. We will actually be back on Sunday for the AEW All Out review.
Yes.
But for now, jam that jam. And you've got to press a button.
Yeah.